Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here, that we get to play this game of healing and extend this conversation about understanding the subtleties of the process of healing and bringing it home. As I was listening to your reading, Jeannie, one of the things that came to mind is how important words are because they mean anything, but because they are representatives of frequencies. Words that are sourced from frequencies based in hostility or fear are destructive to human tissue. Words that are sourced from the presence of love are constructive to tissue. And if you go back 2,000 years ago, you hear this man Yeshua, he puts a pretty heavy-duty emphasis on words. He says, in your words is the power of life and death. And one of the words that gets bantered around in this culture in totally and completely errant ways all the time, virtually everywhere, and I would say even in, like, for instance, in something like the Course in Miracles, the word is bantered around. I mean, they're really clear. There's a definition. Teach only love, for that is what you are. But then there are other places in the Course that talk about loving someone, as this culture banters that word around, like love is something I can get from somebody else, love is something I can give to somebody else, love something I'm deprived of by somebody else. And I've had many conversations about this word with many people who go into resistance and, no, it doesn't matter, well, you can use it loosely and who cares, so what? I'm going to use it this way. Well, of course, everybody's got the right to do what everybody wants to do. But putting in context the purpose of the human mind and its relationships with words, Yeshua's really right. The power of life and death is in our words, and the misuse of words can engage us in frequencies that literally can kill us. When you realize how the human mind works and what its purpose is, my offering is that the best definition I found for the human mind and its function, that it is designed to survey on command, and the command is given by words, all of the data that it has that relates to a particular result you want to produce. Actually, the original introduction to this work, 50 whatever years ago, was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by a guy named Dr. Maxwell Maltz. That was my opening to this work. That's what introduced me to this type of thinking. And Maltz was right on with it. Basically, he said, Psycho-Cybernetics, that the mind is a cybernetic machine, which means it goes looking for how to produce a result. And that's all it does. He was a surgeon. And the way he came to these conclusions, it's been 50 years since I've read the book, but I think my recall on it's fairly good. Basically, he'd do surgery on someone, and if he was not able to help that person to change the words in their minds about themselves, the surgery did no good in terms of people who had surgery for self-image. Of course, if it was an injury, that was something different. A lot of people, plastic surgery is, my nose doesn't look right. Well, if my nose doesn't look right, what words am I using to hold that belief, and what does that do to my mind? and he'd have two people, each with, let's say, the same complaint of, let's say, about their face. And one person, he would not be able to get them to change their mind about the words they were using about their face. And you could do surgery, and it didn't benefit them. It didn't produce the result that they want, even though it was the identical result to the person who, when they were able to change their minds and their thinking about their faces, loved the result and were delighted. Oh, look at what you did. You fixed my face. Now I'm fixed. Two people, same complaint, same surgery, different result according to their thinking. Tend to think in words. Cybernetic machine means it heads for and works to achieve a goal. When you give your mind a goal, not an intention, but a goal, then, and a goal means an objective or a result that you're committed to achieving, then your mind will file through, sort through all of the information it has about that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and according to what resonates the strongest out of that content, your mind will build you a construct that is designed to guide you in producing that result. So let's say I'm putting, and there are 3 cups on the green. And I'm told that if I putt the ball into the center cup, I'll get a $500 reward. If I put it into either of the other cups, I'll get nothing. Now, if my understanding of the word center is incorrect, let's say that I had a crazy history and my parents taught me that center meant that hole over there on the left. I'm just using this as a metaphor, an example. So when this person tells me, if you want to win the $500, you put the ball into the center hole, and I go, okay. My mind says, okay, so there's 3 holes there. The one over on the left is the center, and I'm going to putt. Now, of course, that's an error in the instruction, but just for our example's sake, if that's what one thinks, then the mind does whatever it needs to do to produce that result. And every time that ball goes in that hole over there on the left, the person misses the opportunity to win $500. If you hold a newborn child, if you've ever had that opportunity, I'll invite you to go back mentally and visit that moment where you held a newborn. And if you haven't ever held a newborn, then I invite you to share with my experience of holding a newborn, which I'll share with you. When my daughter was being born, she delivered into my hands. Now, they tell us that a child can't focus their eyes or really see for the first several days. Wasn't true with my daughter. My hands were on her head. Her eyes opened, and she looked as crisp and clear as anybody could look at anybody, right in my face. And that look put me into that, the energy of that put me into a space that is one of the most powerful and indescribable spiritual experiences of my life. So I invite you to hold a newborn, tap into the essence of the newborn. Most of you have heard me do this before. And put the essence of that child into a single word. This is a question, Jean, I've asked of tens of thousands of people all over the globe. And every time, it doesn't matter whether we're in Rome, Italy, or we're in Sweden, or we're in Canada, or we're here in any one of the 50 states, when we ask that question, everybody's answer is always some variation on the theme of love. It's purity, it's sweetness, it's power. And so if that fits for you, then tapping into the essence of that newborn is love. Now, I ask an additional question, and that is, so now that you've established the newborn is love, is the newborn loving you, or is the newborn love? And most people, when we ask that question, kind of cock their heads and go, well, obviously the newborn doesn't even know I'm here. The newborn is love. So I'd offer that you and I and every one of us came into the world in exactly the same way, as the active presence of love. Now, cultures on the earth today, many of them, most of them as far as I know, have a specialty. And their specialty, as much as they say they love their children, misuse of the word, notice, misuse of the word love, because you can't love your children. You don't love your children don't love me, you've never loved anybody, you're never going to love anybody, I don't love you, and you don't love me. That's all a fraud. That's all a misuse of the word. That's like saying, I'm going to putt and win the $500 by putting the ball in the hole over there on the left that I call center. Every time I hit that hole, because I have an incorrect definition of the word, I miss the mark. I miss the goal. So the child is, we are the fact of love. Course in Miracles. Teach only love for, that is what you are. We have cultures that specialize in beating that experience out of us. Mentally, emotionally, and sadly, all too often physically. When people lose contact with themselves as love, they then grow and they experience people who withhold love from them. Now, they're not really withholding love. What they're withholding, think about the person or if you've ever done this, you've withheld love from someone. What did you do? What you really did is you withheld approval. It was a misnomer. It was like calling that hole over there on the left of the putting green the center hole, to call approval love. But what was withdrawn was approval. It wasn't love. When people lose their identity as love, and then they're sent out the door to go find somebody to love them. Matter of fact, you might remember that song title. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? Wouldn't you love somebody to love? You'd better find somebody to love. So now what happens? We're now looking at the hole on the left, lining up our putt to try to sink it to get the goal, the result. And so people give their minds a goal, and that is, find somebody to approve of me, and we'll make that about love, and then we'll think we've achieved the goal. And in doing so, by the activity of the human mind, we lose our human lives. We lose the awareness of ourselves as love, and we lose the ability to function out of the truth of who we are. That's how important the definition of the word is. I think it was Plato that said, let me define the words and I'll end the argument. Now, I've had people say, well, we could just make it both. So it's who I am and it's what I do. Well, you could do that, but that would be like saying the hole over there on the left on the putting green is the center hole. You can call it that, but calling something what it isn't doesn't make it what you want it to be. The cybernetic device, your mind, will only achieve supporting you, functioning as, experiencing yourself as, expressing as love when you give it a correct definition of the word. There are all kinds of definitions, There are people, how many of us heard this line? I'm only beating you, I'm only punishing you because I love you. What a crock of crap. How many of us heard that line? I beg your pardon, love punishes? Surely you are insane if you think that's true. But that's one of the goals of the culture. That's part of the language of the culture. And if we get trapped in improper language, we get trapped in improper behavior, and we block ourselves from reaching the goal. My offering is not that you should love somebody. I would offer that what you really mean when you talk about wanting to love somebody is you want to cherish them, you want to honor them, maybe even approve of them, but it isn't love. The real goal, if you want real relationship, is to experience yourself as the active presence of love and support your partner in doing the same, and your partner supports you in doing the same. Now you've got a true healing relationship. But if it's got to be approval, you'll notice that the moment somebody violates you, the person that you say, I love you so much, what you really mean is I approve you because you fulfill all my goals for you. Notice the moment that they stop fulfilling your goals, what happens? I mean, we've seen it a million times. Love turns to hate. Quote unquote love. Approval turns to disapproval. A la power person dynamics. And people unload all of the power person dynamics they have on their partner whenever that partner stops fulfilling the goals they hold for them. When we correct the mind's definition of the word. Okay, so love describes the state of being that is my created essence, and when I give my mind goals to produce that result, my behaviors are going to change totally and completely. Then if I believe that, and you know, Ginny had talked about this earlier, if I'm, you know, who do you want me? I know that I'm not worthy of relationship, so who do you want me to be? Okay, if I do that, then you'll love me? Okay, I'll do it. And notice when somebody said, you know, well, it's because you're doing this, so change that, and you say, you mean if I change that behavior, you'll love me? All right, I'll change it. And you did change it, right? Did they, quote unquote, stop disapproving of you? No, there was another goal, and another goal, and another goal, and another goal, and every time you violated one of those goals, notice that disapproval stepped into place. And those who've been massively disapproved of only know how, when under stress, to step into disapproval of others, because under the most extreme stress, people always do what their power person did to them that they hated the most. Rewiring the definitions of the mind to words that correctly represent what you're trying to achieve is a really important step in aligning your life with the truth of who you are and supporting you in bringing the truth of who you are into the world. So in terms of having conversation about how much love you want to give, no. How committed are you to functioning as conscious, active, present love? You know, if you've been at my intensives 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you know, remember the phrase comes up all the time, conscious, active, present love. That describes the state of a human being. Otherwise, you become a human doing. What do I have to do to get your love? Which means, what do I have to do to get your approval? And even after you get the approval, love is not the experience. Oh, it can feel good to be approved of, because if you were brought up with a power person who did a lot of disapproval and you stepped out of line, boy, the barbs, the shots, the physical, mental, emotional abuse was horrendous. We need to give the mind goals that are in alignment with the truth of who we are if we want to express and experience the truth of who we are, and we want to experience the truth of others. Key piece is the use of words. And of course, there's the dual journey for producing that result. One side is, on a daily basis, I mean every day, more than once a day, devote time to cultivating your relationship with yourself as love, to realizing who you are as love, and to think from the mind of love in you about yourself, to source thoughts based in total connectedness and love about yourself. Not approval, oh, you're a good person, therefore you're lovable. You don't want to be lovable. If you try being lovable, that's like shooting at that hole over there on the left, trying to win the $500. When you function as love, every behavior that has ever been admired will be the result, naturally, of your experience and expression. So that's one half of the journey. Taking time to cultivate your relationship with your awareness of yourself as love. And yes, deserving the approval, but recognizing that the approval isn't the love. When your physiology is fully fueled by conscious, active, present love, because you know who you are, everything changes. So that's one half of the journey. Take time every day, several times a day, to think thoughts from the mind of your true being, the mind of love, toward and about yourself and toward and about your body. Gee, there's a pain here. Oh, do you go around whining and crying and complaining about the pain? Or do you stop and literally, purposely extend love to that tissue? And unless you're in an environment where you need to explain to a healer what's going on for you, you don't verbalize that energy, because to verbalize it is to strengthen it. And then the other half of the journey is a journey of applied forgiveness. Yeshua said, of the self that most people think they are, that self has to die. In order for you, love, to live, the you that you were taught you were by those who knew no better and wanted to beat the love out of you, that self has to be removed, forgiven. Remembering that the word forgive means to remove. It does not mean to let somebody else off the hook, because there's something inside of you to be removed. When you start giving your mind accurate goals to achieve in regard to this conversation, then you'll make monumental progress toward experiencing yourself as conscious, active, present love. And that's basically what we're here to support you in doing. That's the whole objective of this work, is the serving up of the tools that support people really, truly reconnecting to and re-experiencing themselves as true human beings, as conscious, active, present love. So I hope that fits and makes sense, and I hope it opens some conversations, some questions, some refinements, and or anything else that's on your mind. If you're on a station where we can't see you on our control panel, our call number is 999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show.
We have a hand up.
And if you have a question, push 1 and we'll have a conversation.
And we do have a hand up, and I think it's really cool. We have Yenka in the United Kingdom, we have Bob in Australia, and me in the United States in the chat room. So I said we're covering the world in one little chat room. Technology is amazing.
Cool. Is Peter with us from Sweden by any chance?
No, he's not.
Okay.
But the hand up is Miss Cecilia 480. You are on the air. Hi.
Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, young lady.
So I've been working on a lot to do with money and worksheets and writing letters to the buyer and all this kind of stuff, okay? So I'm just going to continually work on it and happy to do so. Yesterday I found a video. I'm not going to say who it's from on YouTube, but I sent it to you probably 5 minutes before the show. And
I saw that, yes, thank you.
Oh, did you read it, my text?
I looked at it, yes. I haven't watched it yet. I hadn't had time, but I did see it come in,
no,
yes.
That's
and,
okay.
you know, we talk about Bruce Lipton all the time.
Sure.
He does some great stuff. He's great.
Amazing. Yeah, he's amazing. So he had somebody else that also spoke on that video, but it was about the poor, why the poor get poorer because of their programming, and why the rich get richer because of their programming. And then you got to be conscious and get out of the unconscious mind and get into the be conscious and think, you know, and question your programming. And then the other guest on his show that sounds like he's an expert in this too started saying things. Well, of course, we go to school, we get programmed. We don't get programmed about money, but we get programmed to get a job and to work hard and to find a job and to work for an employee and to pay taxes and to get out of debt and to and then get savings and then put your savings and invest them. And all of that, he said, and Bruce must agree with this because it's his video, his name's on the video. And with all of that, he said, not Bruce, the other guy, he said, you will get poor doing that, okay? And it threw me. That's what everything I was taught, right? So I know worksheet. But I was trying to not figure out. It was just this. I didn't want to drop it and just not think about it. But I sat down. I thought about it. I transcribed the show. It was 8 minutes, and which got it clearer. And then I thought, you know, why they said all that is so that I disconnect from the source of all abundance. Okay, the world wants me to disconnect from who I am. So I have savings, then I rely on savings as the source, or investment as investment. I just want your take on it.
So where are we heading? What's the bottom line question we're heading toward? Because I'm kind of getting lost in the story.
Oh, sure. No, that's the transcription of the show. So where I'm headed is I have saved and saved and saved and saved, and that's how I think that I'm making it through. My house not selling. Okay, my father invested in some investments.
So I got the story.
What is this?
That's
what
what I
is
want.
it
The
with
question.
Savings? What is it with savings and investments that makes me poor? Poor in spirit? What is your thoughts on that? Because that was a big, huge thing that jumped off the page with me in that video. That if you have savings or investments, you will get poor.
Well, that I'm not sure that is I haven't listened to the video,
Okay.
so I can't comment directly on it. But it doesn't make sense to me because I know people who have savings and they're, fairly wealthy. I know people have investments and they're poor. People make poor investments and they lose savings and they spend more money than they've got. There are all kinds of dynamics. But the underlying thing to me would be, if I'm seeing myself heading toward poverty in some way, then I want to start forgiving the content of that file, so to speak, in my mind on poverty. What kind of thought disorder is behind that? Oftentimes it's a power person message of, maybe something like, you don't deserve abundance, you don't deserve wealth, or you're broken, you're not good enough, you'll never have anything. And so the person who buys into that kind of a thought disorder, all kinds of abundance heads in their direction, and they find a way to throw it away. They find a way to destroy it. So it might be, you might do some worksheets around abundance and what would be some of the goals you have. Like, for instance, have you canceled the need to have enough money to be able to afford your house there in Ohio and the house in Arizona?
Have I canceled
that might
the
be,
goal to have enough money for
you might
both
look
houses?
at that as a goal. I'm just, bouncing suggestions off you of places you might go to uncover if there's a part of your mind that's creating this result. If you're participating even on a subtle energy level, then you want to access that part of your mind and breathe it out. Bring it to the presence of love and let loose of it. And of course, the genius of what Yeshua gave us was that forgiveness process, that when I look at the goal that I'm holding in any given circumstance, where my mind's producing this particular reality, when I cancel that goal, my mind's content collapses in on itself and it gives me access to the underlying energy that needs to be cleaned up. So that might be a direction to go, is just simply canceling the need to have enough money to afford both. And maybe the worksheets you need to do are around affording things. Maybe the worksheets you have to do are around poverty. Maybe the worksheets you have to do are around deserving. I'm not sure exactly what's going on for you, but they might be some areas to explore and do some worksheets in those arenas and see what surfaces from beneath.
This morning I also watched go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I watched Creating Consciously. I love the VHS, by the way. I can see you and I get a better, visual and audio. Anyway, when you said in the video that if you have, grumbling or something about paying bills, get rid of the electricity, And I'm like, that's me. I'm grumbling about paying both of these houses, and I don't want both of these bills, but I hear that, so I got to be grateful for it, and also grateful because it kills the telomere or whatever those enzymes in the DNA. It shortens your life.
Telomeres.
Yeah. And so I'm like, the last thing in the world at this point when I heard that just over the weekend, no more. I'm not grumbling anymore. I'm just going to be grateful, because the three things that keep you healthy are love for self, appreciation, gratitude,
actually honoring self. And maybe you've picked some, the first half of this today's show was refining the understanding of the word love. And I've got to own up to the fact that I used to use the word love the way I was taught, the way the culture teaches us, that love is something we do to each other.
Yes.
And so I deserve love. Well, if I think I deserve love, I'm using the word in an off-base way. And so I'm going to need to clean that up. And I know some of my older materials use that word incorrectly. That's one of the reasons why I, brought that refinement up in the show earlier today.
Okay. So the three things to not have that telomere, sorry, I'm not going to say it right, and all that other stuff. Yes, is number one, honoring
self.
Well, if you don't dust, then you're not going to get that extra thing that comes on. One of those. There's something. He has two names that sound alike. But anyway, and then if you don't have great gratitude for what you don't have gratitude and appreciation. And
for what you
third
have.
is
Yeah.
stress. Okay. So of course I have all of these things. I do appreciate, and I'm learning to honor myself and other people. So I felt good about that. But the stress, and I'm working on that too. I'm doing the exercises for that in the intensive. So when I watched your video this morning, I'm like, well, I still don't have appreciation for paying those bills there, so I better just have appreciation for them. So that's it.
You're getting down to deeper, subtler levels of the work that you're working on. And when you get to the more refined thoughts, it takes a more refined awareness.
Okay.
And that's something that just takes time to build the brain cells for that.
Yes, okay. All right, I'll just be patient. I feel like I'm on a road. I believe in giving 2.5, if not more, hours a day to build my spiritual body, okay, and connect to my source. So I don't know if you can. I appreciate that you took the time to listen to me. I know there's other listeners, so I just want to let you know. Thank you for everything.
I'm not sure whether or not in the workshop you're talking about, the On Creating Consciously workshop, whether or not I shared the moment where I moved. The first 7 years I did this work, basically I lived in poverty. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. Sometimes I didn't know how I was going to feed my kids.
Yes, I heard that.
And so, did I talk about how I'm driving down I-95?
Yep.
In Florida.
You got a message to go back. You were going to go home because your furnace blew or you couldn't go home. So, and then you went back to Florida again. And then you did that exercise with the money, with the people there about exchanging a $100 bill and let's see what comes up for everybody. And then.
But the bottom line was.
Yeah. Okay.
The bottom line resolution of that 7 years of poverty doing this work was I know exactly where I was on the physical earth when this happened. I'm driving down 995. I'm at Hillsborough Boulevard, and I've got, I forget, something like $20 in my pocket, and I'm supposed to get in the car the next day and drive back to North Georgia with my kids, and I'm told, I had $100 in my pocket, and I'm told to get off. I'm intuitively, this is inside, I get the guidance to get off the highway, go to a bank, and change the $100 that I had in my pocket into a $100 bill and give it away in the workshop that night. To which my mind replied, "Are you crazy? I can't even put gas in the car to get my kids back and put food in the fridge."
Mm-hmm.
But I followed the guidance and I gave. And the next, as it turned out, the next day I borrowed money from the person we're staying with, and I'm, heading back up to North Georgia. I go up to start the car, and people are saying, "Well, Michael, you've only been here a few weeks. You've got things started. We want you to stay. We want you to do workshops." It's like, no, I've got to get back to the home I've rented in North Georgia. And I load the car, we put the kids in the car, I go to start the car, and for the first time in about 60,000 miles at that point, I turn the key and absolutely nothing happens with the car. And I took that as a sign and said, okay, I'm going to stay here. And the next week, I literally had a full-time practice where I made 3 times what I'd ever made in any week doing this work in the previous 7 years. I had started doing it full-time, and it's never dropped beneath that. But the key was, am I, it's kind of like, I don't remember who it was that said it, but the universe gives back to you through the hole that you give through. So when you give, it's, sparse, as little as possible, there's no generosity in it, then that creates an opening in the universe. Says, okay, I'll give back to you sparse, and there's no generosity in it. When you open your mind to literally generous abundance to what supports you, then the universe goes, oh, I can give back through that hole? Okay. Then things start to show up in a different way. That was my experience out of, the first 7 years of doing this work and living literally hand to mouth. And the core of what changed that for me was that I had been brought up in churchianity, and I was brought up with a belief that if you're going to do spiritual work, you have to live in poverty. That ultimately was what I needed to work through in order to change that. And I mean, literally, to the minute, to the mile, I know where I was on the highway, and that whole thing. I mean, everybody around me changed when I did that particular piece of work. I don't know exactly what the piece of work is you need to do to make this whole circumstance shift for you.
Right.
But that's the controlling energy of how things show up in our lives would be my offering.
What is the controlling energy? Clearing it out?
What's the mind energy that I live in, in regard to any particular issue? If it's about receiving, what's the energy that I give with? And that I need to reach into the deepest parts of me, heal any mind energy that inhibits generosity and abundance in me. Because if that's inhibited, then I'm sending out a message to the universe of, you got to keep me in poverty.
I did that exercise on creating consciously about your parents come and see you living in poverty, and your parents send you at favors, and then
that's
they see a mediocre, and then yes it is. Right. But this time I did it. I welcomed them in, and I said, I love you. I understand. You have the same mind energy as me, but but we all just. We're all connected to the same source, and we're all creative beings, and live in the energy of abundance, And so whatever I said, I'm so happy to give you a Mercedes, and la la la. And I understand. I have so much compassion for you being a workaholic, because you had so much fear, and you weren't working at all, and so it just you were just going reactive, and I don't take it in, and you weren't responsible for me taking it in, and yada yada. I went through everything, and I felt like I sent so much love to them, and you didn't tell me to do that in the video, and I did it the other way many other times, many years, and so. I think they're both very healing, but this was so incredibly cool because I had the insight to see if the past ones were all horrible negative reactions, and then this was just they just wanted to listen.
So one of the purposes, and one of the purposes of that exercise is like a mind shifter. Use it in order to look at what's the underlying energy. And so each of the things that you just mentioned would be things that you'd want to do worksheets on.
Okay.
So take everything that surfaced for you in that. Gee, I remember when I was so resentful of you, and now I can offer love, but I need to go in. So that's half of it, is bringing forward the presence of love and offering it. The other half is the forgiveness of that resentment and what was beneath that. What's the mind energy is held from there. So using that exercise like a mind shifter. Look at everything that comes up, all of the indicators that say there's some kind of limitation, some sort of hostility or fear, and forgive as to that hostility or fear, and you're on track.
Okay.
Cool.
I feel like
we'll be holding a space, young lady.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay. Take care. Blessings. Bye-bye. Right. And I'll look forward to watching that Bruce Lipton video. Thanks.
Yes, please. Okay.
All righty.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Miss Jeannie, we've got about 6 minutes left. By the way, speaking of Bruce Lipton, and I haven't told the story in quite a while on the show. I have told it previously, but it was fun. I was out in Boulder, Colorado, speaking at conference there, and a woman came up to me who had worked with me in Florida some years before. And pardon me, I've got that story mixed up. Bruce Lipton went to a university in Colorado where a woman I'd worked with in Florida was going to school, and she gave him a copy of my book, told me about it, and as a result of that, I picked up the phone and called him. And when I got Bruce on the phone, just, the coincidental energy of it was he was sitting reading my book as the phone rang and he answered it. I introduced myself. Oh yeah, I'm sitting here reading your book. So there are a lot of parallels. Anything you can watch of Bruce Lipton is awesome, and it will augment the journey totally and completely that you're making with this work. So, and he's got lots of stuff on YouTube. So, Miss Jeannie, we've got about 5, maybe 4 minutes. Do we have another hand up?
No, nobody has a hand up, but I had a question. Wasn't it after you did the television thing with Ruben?
That's right, yes.
And he said you're doing the same thing as Bruce, but then the lady had given Bruce your book, so it's kind of that's another piece to it.
Yeah, I actually missed a piece out of it, yes. I was doing a television interview in New York, and the guy had told me that he'd done an interview with Bruce Lipton the week before. Actually, he was the one that gave me the phone number to reach Bruce. He'd been in touch with him as a producer. And a totally separate situation, this university, this girl was in the university in Boulder, gave him a copy of the book. And when I called as a result of the interview in New York, Bruce was reading my book. That was a coincidence of it, yes. It's been a few years. But yes, thank you for catching that. Yeah, that's right on track. It definitely makes the story more meaningful when those two pieces
adds
come
another
together.
depth.
Yes, yeah, resonance. Well, if there's nobody with a hand up, then I'm going to throw out another thought. We did the chapter 5 from Why Is This Happening to Me Again on the Hear My Voice book club. Did you get that email from me, by the way, with the links, sweetie?
I did, but I haven't put it on the site yet.
Okay. Well, it'll be on the site in the next day or two. And in that workshop yesterday, when we're doing the book study, the topic of intuition came up, and I shared a little bit about our intuitive development intensive. And several people on the call from different parts of the world expressed an interest in doing an online intuitive development intensive. So if you're interested in that, there were enough people that I'm considering setting one up. It will probably be a 10-week session. It will include the pre and post personal code evaluation. It will include Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And then the practical online intuitive development will also include the Fresh and Raw Food Program, private links, and menu set for the fresh and raw food that goes along with the intensive. So if you're interested in joining us for that, it will probably be a Saturday and Sunday. We'll do a session on a Saturday and a Sunday for 10 weeks consecutively. If you're interested in joining us, and drop Jeannie a note, or if you've got my number, drop me a note. Jeannie's email, is Jeannie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org. If you drop her a note with your name and phone number and that you're interested, then as the plan comes together, if it falls in place, then I'll let you know and you can register for it. And if you're interested in an intuitive development intensive that includes the forgiveness work of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, drop Jeannie a note. In the meantime, create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings.